Welcome to Now for Someone Completely Interesting. I'm your host, Ben Poulin. It goes without saying that I could record multiple podcasts with all my guests, and in 5 cases, I have. So now, joining the Two Timers Club is my guest from episode 23. Growing up on the same street in Elk Point, Alberta, Darren and I were part of a street hockey dynasty. We were the 49th Ave Street Hockey Champions from 1993 to 1998. There was only one team in the league, but we played to win. So from on our last podcast, from dry heaving at grad parties to a near deadly encounter with the extremely dangerous Australian soda cracker, I welcome back one of my all-time best friends, Darren Watson.
Hey, thanks for having me. Another beer.
Another beer, yeah, another year. And we're going to get into, we got a little bit into where your career is professionally. We're going to get into that a little bit later on, but I do want to do a little bit of reminiscing from some
Sure. Yeah.
our misguided youth, if you can say that. We were talking about it the other night, and it was one of those like flashback things that I haven't thought about in a long time, because when you were growing up, your parents owned a video store.
Yeah. What's on video?
What's on video? Brilliantly named. And
Yeah. By my brother. My brother came up with the name, and
which brother was that?
Steve.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they're like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And then I think that was a bit of a joke, I think, for everybody for a couple of years, and yeah, but at the same time, it was part-time job, and it was interesting in a small town.
Okay. Video stores, I actually miss the whole experience of going to the store and renting the videos and stuff like that. You worked there. What were some of the interesting things that would happen as an employee at a video store like that?
Oh, I don't know. Being in a small town, there's obviously only a couple of people in the store, so you don't really have to worry about watching it. But I do remember we had like these A-frames that had the videos on and games and stuff on either sides, and you'd watch kids come in and just, they'd be like probably 8, 9, 10 and just acting super sus. And then you would like literally be watching them walk around and watching you, and then you're watching them, and then you end up following out the store, and this one kid had his shirt completely full with probably 30 of our video games, the Nintendo games.
Right.
But what he didn't realize is that the games aren't in them. So he just had 30 cases, and we told him we're going to call the police, whatever, and he kind of got scared, and we just said, okay, go home.
Did you know who this kid was?
No, I still don't.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know who he was.
Rare for a small town.
Yeah.
At the risk of exposing ourselves here. It's a small town. Video stores obviously have that one section that everybody talks about. It's out of the way. It's got its own special room. People go in, decide what video they want, and is it like basically they tell you a title or the number, and then
exactly.
Okay.
They just give you a number, and you make sure that they're old enough, and you hand it over with a little bit of a smirk. I don't know how to see. You have males, you have females, and obviously, like you said, in small towns, you pretty much know everybody. So
what was the demeanor of people? Were they like kind of like
pretty timid? They wouldn't look in the eye, even though they knew that you knew each other, and if you passed each other on the street, that was fine. But it's like, oh, here's the number, and
so
you did not see me here.
Did you ever ask for ID from anybody you actually knew just to mess with them?
No, because realistically, it was all the people that were getting it. They were visibly older.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nobody. I was actually surprised, and I think probably people our age didn't really know too much about us having that kind of stuff too, so they probably didn't even bother trying. And obviously I knew everybody too, so I knew everybody under 18, so it would have been pretty easy to peg. But
all right, so here's where we get the video store shut down before we were even done high school.
Yeah. And
all those videos ended up somewhere.
Yeah.
You had a room in your basement that was your room where you grew up, but if your parents are listening to this, did they know that this happened? that we
Oh no.
we found which box contained the adult videos.
Yeah, going through the boxes looking for video games, and we're like, "Whoa, what's this box?"
So it started out as innocent. Okay, let's just, cap it at that, because this incriminates both of us. Teenage boys will do teenage boys things, right? So I just thought we were reminiscing about it. Was an interesting part of the past that I don't know. You don't forget about it, but it's always in the back of your mind that this stuff happens. But to me, yeah. Okay, let's move on to some more professional side of, well, I guess depending on what your profession is. PG, okay. Yeah. Since the last time we talked, Darren, a lot has happened in the world as far as lifting of restrictions and travel and stuff like that. And something that you're pretty passionate about is seeing the world itself. What's some of the you've done some traveling since then, obviously. What's been happening on that side? Yeah,
the last couple of years did a few trips here and there. Obviously, there were still a lot of countries that had restrictions on even the beginning of last year, but went to Jamaica, and that was my second time back there, but went to a different part with a good friend of mine, Mike, and spent a week out there. And just obviously at that point when you're pretty much cooped up for almost a better part of 2 years, it was just nice being able to go out and like do a day trip to waterfalls or go take catamaran out and stuff like that. Like just being able to get out and enjoy the world, right?
What was some of the atmosphere like in other parts of the world? Because
it was still pretty, like there it was still half and half. You had the people that were everybody like wearing masks, and I think they were used to it. And then, but as far as like for us when we went, this would have been November of 2021, and there was you had to wear masks obviously in the bus and obviously on the plane and stuff like that. But as soon as you got to the resort, you didn't have to. So I mean, you really didn't realize it for the week you were there until you're getting back and heading back home, right?
Yeah.
But that was one trip, and then like last summer I spent good 3.5 weeks in Europe, and went and saw some friends in London, and went to Amsterdam. Went to Croatia. Got some good friends there. Spent a week on the Dalmatian coast. Makarska, which is pretty much like the Croatian Riviera. And you've got a lot of the other countries like Greece and Italy and stuff that tend to holiday home there.
Right.
So yeah, it's beautiful. And then I went by myself down up to Poland and up to Czechia, so Prague, Krakow, Auschwitz, Birkenau.
Wow. I'm literally just reading a book about all of that, so that really piques my interest there too. So
yeah, it's a very somber day, and it was really eerie when I was there, because got up at the hotel at probably about 5 a.m. and then we were out by probably about 6. And so when you have to drive about 2 hours west of Krakow to get there, and it's just the countryside was like any other European countryside, but you just have it was really like kind of dewy and frosty, and there was a lot of haze, and it just seemed kind of cool and damp, and then when you got there and you looked at everything, and it was like kind of coming up, like the sun's pretty much just starting to come up. This is about say 7 or 8 o'clock. And you're just seeing outlines of buildings, and you're seeing the fog in the distance and covering half of the fields and stuff, and you can just like literally be instantly like transplanted there, and your like heart is racing, and you're like feeling you just have that a bit of that anxiety, a little bit of somberness, like knowing that this is what people almost 100 years ago would have been experiencing when they were getting off the tracks and walking up to those buildings and stuff like that. And it's just, I mean, it's something I think that everybody needs to experience. I think it's something that, there's a lot of us that are just, and a lot of like younger people as well that just don't understand that part of our history, and that really I think should to understand where we're at.
Do you think someone who doesn't have a lot of knowledge of it or read a lot about it could visit that and instantly?
Yes.
Is there something there that kind of
Yeah.
Like,
I think I know there's one room that I was in there, and there was a girl that was probably about 16 that was on like there the same time I was. And there's one room that is probably about 40 or 50 feet long. And it's probably about, let's say 20 feet deep. And it's literally 7 feet high, just stacked with shoes. Like even right now talking about it, I can feel my voice breaking up a bit. It's just, when you're in there, it's like, it's hard not to be moved by it, if you're not Jewish, you're not German, like it doesn't matter. We're all kind of affected by that. Yeah. But it was great. Overall, it was an amazing trip, great experience, a bit of mix. Like I said, I like to do a bit of culture, a little bit of food, like obviously the beaches, all the fun kind of stuff. Go to concerts when I'm out and about, and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's been great, and I think for a lot of people that really do like to travel, they're starting to get back into it over the last year, and they really did miss it.
Yeah. Like you've mentioned, because you've got friends in some of these locations that you visit. So when you're traveling, do you plan specifically because of where they are, and does that change or I shouldn't say change, but does that set a little bit of the agenda that you're not necessarily on the mainstream tourist? Yeah,
yes and no. I mean, I think the thing about Croatia, because I've gone there every year, or I've gone there 3 of the last 4 years, with the 1 year off that we couldn't go during COVID, but I tried to go every summer. And I think it's a place that I would definitely buy a place, like be able to have like a holiday home. I think it's beautiful. I think there's something for everybody. It's an older culture too, so it's it's somewhere that somebody can retire, I think, very easily. It's in the middle of it's right in between Italy and Greece, and that that whole expanse in between that has such history and stuff. And obviously for anything like that too, you hop on a plane and within an hour and a half you could be 2 countries over, right? So
or even a train for that matter.
Or a train, yeah, exactly. So, and it's just a different culture, and I think it's for me, I've got a bit of an addictive personality, I think. So I think when I spent a lot of time like doing the Caribbean, I did like the whole Caribbean. Like I think there's like 3 or 4 countries in the Caribbean that I have not done. But when I went to my first Europe trip, that was only maybe 5 years ago. So, I mean, for the first 20 years that I was traveling, I didn't even bother hopping over the pond. And I've got ties to like England and Ireland and Scotland. And I think those are going to be some of those, like if I do go somewhere this summer, I think when I'm looking at Europe, I was looking at like spending more time in the UK and kind of working north, like to Scotland, and maybe do like Swinlet. See, the beers are already hitting us this morning.
It's not morning, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah, Sweden, Finland, Norway. You know what I mean? Like do a little grouping there. Because I feel like I'll always try to do like a Europe trip now, because it's just so expensive. Like for you to take 2 or 3 countries off in a given year and chip away at that, I think
I think it's the fact that growing up the way we did in Canada, you can drive 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, and not leave the province.
Yeah, exactly.
In Europe, you can drive 6 hours and go through 3 countries.
3 countries, yeah, and
very, very different countries and regions. That being said, with all the travel you've done up to this point, is there, and maybe even consider where you live, where would your favorite place be if you had to?
If I had to settle down?
If you had to, yeah.
Like,
I don't know, maybe that's not a fair question, but.
I mean, it sort of is. Up until this point, I think I have like, besides Canada, like, obviously I love Canada. I love Alberta. I think it's one of the greatest provinces. And obviously I love coming back home here too. Like, Calgary's my home now, and I've got a great life there, but at the same time coming back to St. Paul and Elk Point it always feels good. It feels like home. But yeah, I think if I wasn't in Canada or specifically Alberta, I think I'd be, down south in California, like in Palm Springs, be able to golf, have hot weather, 12 months of the year. Or I'd be in, back in Australia.
Right.
I'd definitely settle down there because it just has absolutely everything. The country's amazing. If anybody who's been there, I think they can attest to the fact that there's such crazy diversity, and it's a big country as well. Like, I mean, it's bigger than the United States. So
just don't eat the crackers.
Just don't. Just stay away from the box crackers. These things will kill you.
Episode 23, Darren Watson almost died choking on a cracker. I'd have to say, like, me personally, I mean, I haven't done enough traveling to really have a good sample. I mean, the only warm place I've been to, Costa Rica, which was fantastic. Loved it there. As a trip, a vacation, great. As a place to really invest in or settle down, for that matter. But my list is, like you hit on it earlier here, the European touring. I think is just there's so much going on there historically and even currently that I think really fascinates me overall. So,
and you're either going to be like somewhere in Austria or Switzerland where you're taking in the winter stuff, or if you're like me, you're going to be in a place like Croatia or these other countries where you can like Spain or something, where you can have like a really long hot summer and be able to enjoy the beaches and all that kind of stuff. So, and
I think I like my Canadian climate the best overall.
You like the mediocre. You don't like the hot. You like the 20 something.
I like a bit of everything. Yeah, I like our summers. I like our winters when they're not too cold, but I can handle the cold snaps. But that's just. Anyways, I digress. This is about you, not me. So obviously, you have this great ability to travel extensively. You spend a lot of time. So how do you find a job that accommodates that kind of a hobby there? So let's talk about that. We got into it a little bit. So. I thought it was funny because you had to look up your actual title. Director, Project, and Digital Marketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get into that in the first place?
Yeah. So I think we might have touched on it a little bit in the last podcast, but my kind of progression from school, after I went and moved to Australia for a year, came back, at that point, I was wanting to get into finance. I was getting into a bank, and I worked for one of the major 4 banks for about, I guess it would have been 3.5 years when I came back. This is about 2005 to 2008. And I was working with the bank doing small business finance. This is investments. This is companies, anything under, say, $5 million, right? So I was working all their investments, their mortgages, the commercial mortgages, everything. And I was doing that for quite a while. And I loved working with clients and I loved doing that part. I've always liked helping people in that aspect, but I just felt like, I wasn't what the bank wanted to be able to push as products wasn't always the best products for those people. So I was like, you know what? I just don't feel comfortable doing this anymore. I love doing this. I love investing. I love doing that stuff, but I can always do that stuff on my own. I don't need to be doing that as a job. And then I had, at the same time, one of the guys that I worked with as another small business advisor says, hey, like I'm leaving, I'm going and doing this job. It makes X amount, which was almost double what I was making at the current time. And he said they're looking for a lot of people and they're really trying to expand the business. Well, it ended up being Yellow Pages, which was obviously at the time a book transitioning to digital marketing. And so I was like, yeah, you know what's interesting? And it was a complete acquisition. So it was obviously just going out to, if you were for example, we're sitting here with Lakeland, Brewing Company, beer in front of us.
Yeah.
And, we were just, obviously it was a easy transition, I think, for me, in the fact that I was like, okay, I want to try something new. I've been at this other job for a while and I just felt like it was just kind of getting flat, stagnant, and it just wasn't my passion. And I was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind trying this. It'd be interesting. So yeah, I went into that and I stayed, and I was with Yellow Pages for 7 years. And it was really a transition from being 99% book to like almost completely digital, let's say 80% digital. But during that transition, obviously learning a lot, right? Taking in a lot of knowledge of those 8 years. And I was like, you know what? When it came down to it, it was timing where I felt it was about that 7-8 year itch. And I was like, this would have been 2000 and this would have been about 2014.
Yeah.
And 2014, 2015. And then I was like, you know what? I want to go travel again. So that's when I went and did, 3 months through Asia and the South Pacific. And at that point, when I came back, one of my good friends him and another partner kind of had a few clients that they were working with, and they said, hey, we really want to take this company and we want to grow this. And so I talked to them for, a couple of months about it, and then we decided, yeah, let's do this. So I came on as kind of like employee number one for them.
Yeah.
And we just essentially just started talking to, businesses in Calgary and just kind of like educating them a bit differently than I think a lot of other companies out there were doing at the time.
Right.
And it's a really competitive space. There's a lot of digital marketing companies, and over COVID, there was a massive, closure of a lot of those businesses. And I think you have to be very on top of things. You have to be understanding the market today. You have to be understanding the changes. You have to have your diverse teams. So anyway, yeah, it's been really good. This is, obviously coming on 2015. So this is 8 years.
Yeah.
And we've grown the business to about 26 staff.
I just want to take a step back a little bit.
Sure.
So you're leaving a well-established, very well-known company that successfully transitions from
from print to
digital, and then some guys come up and say, "Hey, we're going on our own."
Yeah,
is that a little? I guess it's not as risky for a guy who's not with the family and supporting but is there a little bit in the back of your mind, like, what am I doing? Like I have all the stability here with Yellow Pages, and now I'm gonna
and I think at that point the industry was changing a little bit too, where I think a lot of advertisers were getting to the point where they were saying, you know what, Yellow Pages is my only option, and it's worked for 20-30 years. And it was tried and true. So you don't, like anything else, you don't mess if it's not broken, right? Don't fix it if it's not broken. And I think it worked for a very long time, and it was an amazing source for a lot of people. And some businesses, it's still a great source. And it really just depends on your demographic, right? And now if you look at the book, it's so small, but the fact that we have that quote unquote book in our hand every single day, being able to have our access through our phone and be able to have an access to such a large volume of information, people are more educated now. They understand what they have to look for. It's not just, open this and pick a company because he's the biggest guy in the book. He's probably the most reputable. Now it's actually engagement with those customers, with your reviews, with your multimedia, and having, tutorials about, how a product or a service works. So an individual, when they're coming to your business, they can understand more, and like anything else, if they can understand your product or your service, they will buy, right? So it's making it a more seamless process from the person coming into the website and being able to go through with an engagement that business wants. So, and trying to put that all that together is the fun part for me, because coming to work every single day is a new problem, a new kind of hiccup, and a new change that Google introduces that impacts all of your clients' campaigns. And right now I think we've got about 250 clients.
Right.
And we've got clients in the UK, we've got clients all over the US, we've got clients obviously across all of Canada. And kind of coming back to what we were talking about, like how it gives me the ability to be able to work, is the fact that all I need is an internet connection and my phone, right? So when I was in Prague, I was working through the night. Well, obviously trying to keep hours. So I'm working with my teams and the projects, keeping everything on deadlines for new advertising campaigns that are going up, new websites that are being launched. So for me, it didn't bother me, but I could do that from anywhere. So it's a beautiful thing about my job.
So it's not just flexibility in hours. It's actually just that you can basically work from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Like you deciding to go live in Croatia would not disrupt your career.
Exactly. Yeah. For me to be able to do this. And I think there's still the human element to it. I think there's still, there's your clients where you're saying, hey, let's meet for once a year face to face, and let's just chat about how things are going. But over the last couple of years with Google Meets, with, your chat components like Skype, whatever people are using, Microsoft Teams, people have been able to connect,
Yeah.
I think, in a different way, and now they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Right. So they're like, hey, you know what? This is actually more efficient for us to be able to have a meeting now instead of you driving to me an hour and a half in traffic and me getting interrupted, and where we can just have a 30-minute and go through everything.
I will say this. I agree the efficiency to do business that way, but at the same time, and this was one of my mandates for this podcast, because I could do a podcast with anybody anytime, remotely.
Exactly.
But there's something completely different about a dynamic when you meet face to face. And I can't explain what that is, but it for my purposes and my experience, this will never change. We will never do it by Zoom. But I understand from a business aspect, but I still think you're probably right. Maybe that once a year face to face.
Yeah, or a couple times, or once every quarter. Like, I have no problem with that. I'm a very customer centric person in the fact that I want them to be comfortable knowing exactly what they're paying for, what they're hired, iNet Media, me and my services, my teams, obviously their expertise. And that's what they're getting, is the understanding to say, hey, I can meet with somebody every single month. And if I choose not to, it's because I know everything's going great and I have the confidence in those guys to take care of everything for me. But I need to know what's going on, and that communication's always open. So I think that's important.
And this is back to the uncertainty of starting with a new company, basically employee number one, to now having 26 employees 8 years later.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like, because you obviously are a big part of that growth, being I definitely feel I was, and I definitely would hope that, the two managing partners would feel the same way. But I definitely feel, success in being able to help grow this team and to be able to help, again, the same thing. Like, when you have your teams, you're trying to mold those teams. You're trying to say, this is what culture we want to have here. This is, what we want to do. This is the communication we need to have. These are these are our processes and guidelines that we need to stick by. And I think it's great when you do have a team that big that we have, that feels like a family. You know what I mean? Any small business owner, I think they can attest to it. When you have 20, 30 staff, or even if it's 50, if you can still feel that big family dynamic, it's huge, because nobody wants to come and feel like they're part of, separate components, right? They want to feel that if I were to fall, somebody else is here to help, kind of stand me back up, right? So I'm really proud about what we've done. Now, I'm assuming then that because of where this all started, you guys are essentially based out of Calgary?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
We're out of Calgary.
But 26 employees aren't all in Calgary.
We've got, so we don't do any outsourcing as far as sending work outside of iNet Media, so all of our staff.
Right.
But we do have probably a handful, I think about 3 or 4 of our staff that are in, other countries. So,
right.
Pakistan, India. But they are also... we've had staff that were started there that have moved, are wanting to move to Canada.
Right. Okay.
So I think it's great in the fact that it kind of allows a bit of both, and they still will try to work by our hours, and we're obviously very, very flexible with them as well. But same thing. Like, we're on a call every single morning. Every 8:30 every morning, all of us are on a call together talking about how the previous day was, how things are going. So again, it's like a family dynamic. You see them every single day. It's no different than another person you're seeing in another tile beside them that's in the other part of the city. So it's
why I'm smirking though, right?
Right.
You're spending the long weekend here, and you had to take that call yesterday morning.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Remote.
Lying in bed in your underwear.
Yeah, remote. Yeah, that one was...
Did your coworkers realize because you were kind of holding the phone away from you and not really showing too much of your...
No, for me, it's I've got a very short piece that I need to kind of contribute just on what campaigns that we have launching and stuff like that. So I have it all memorized. So at that point, I wasn't on camera.
Am I putting you in an awkward position where your coworker's like, "Are you serious? You took a meeting while you were in your underwear?"
I think over the last couple of years, I think we've all taken meetings without pants. Ian,
there's the real benefit right there.
Yeah. Ian, if you're out there, where's my pants?
And not saying it won't happen, but so far it's been proper clothing attire on this podcast. Yeah. We did joke about it. Maybe I would do a Bert Kreischer podcast with no shirt on. Well, but yeah, I'm not sure I'm there yet. So okay, just to touch on a little bit here is specifically like what is a typical for one of your clients, like what you do for them typically, because we talk about digital media, but what does that all entail? Or digital marketing, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we take a pretty holistic approach, right? So somebody could come to us with a website, and the unfortunate thing is a lot of websites that are still out there, and it's no fault of the business owner, because essentially it's what was marketed to them, right? Like GoDaddy, here you can get a website for a couple $100, or like a Wix, or like any of those type of template or builder websites.
Right.
You like the whole adage, it's you get what you pay for.
Right.
Right. So yes, they're very simple. They're very insert here and templated, right? Which is easy to do. But at the same time, when you're thinking about what Google wants to have, so Google has, they're looking for what they call EAT. The acronym is expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trust. So what Google wants to see from your website in order to rank well organically for, say, for example, for you, if you wanted to say Alberta podcasts, right? Yeah. Somebody's typing that in on Google and they're wanting to see, if you wanted your website to rank well, you would have to try to meet those 4 things, right?
Okay.
So what you're trying to do is you're not trying to scam the system. You're not trying to stuff keywords in your website. What you're trying to do is you're really trying to say, hey, I'm an expert in this.
Right.
I've got this experience. I do have that, I've got all the information that you need to do to make a conscious decision about my product or my business. Right.
Right.
And then for that, it's just when you're doing search engine optimization, it's doing on and off page optimization. So it could be everything from like your meta titles on your pages, obviously the content within those pages. If you don't have a whole lot of content, again, you can't get, you won't be able to get any traction on that, because Google won't, when they do index a site, they might not index your website for another couple months. Right. So if they go in and are doing it now and they're saying, hey, this has very little to do with podcasts. Mm-hmm. So if the content, that text on that page doesn't make any sense, they're going to say, well, let's just bypass them. But if you were a guy who goes and says, hey, I've got a lot of information talking about why my podcast is in Alberta and who I serve and who I've had on it and all this, then Google's like, hey, this is great information. This is very informative. So let's give them a boost. So they'll push them up. So maybe you go from page 2 up to bottom of page 1. And then as you're doing that each and every month, you're adding new content, citations, blogs, new information to your website, breaking it out into more specific, relevant pages. Right. So if you have a service page that's talking about all your services on it, you should really be breaking apart that service page into separate service pages that each one of them are relevant, especially if you're going to be doing advertising. So if you're doing your Google ads, like your pay-per-click, if you're doing any display or remarketing visual ads, all that stuff is going to be very important to have those separate pages that you can track that traffic that's coming in, which people are able to convert on those pages, whether it's request a quote, book an appointment, contact us, filling out a form or a phone call, the major engagements that a business wants, and being able to get all that information and put it together.
How much do you charge for this kind of consultation? Because I just got it for free, and everybody listening to this.
For us, we do the consultations for free. That's the best part about it is because we want to inform our potential clients to say, this is what you need to do. And it's again, that holistic approach where we're saying, hey, we're going to help. We want to rebuild your website because right now you cannot do anything within that existing kind of format with like a template builder. Because it's you think of a template builder like a Swiss Army knife, right? It's got all of these tools to it, but at any given time, you probably only need one, right? So when Google's looking at one of the things on your ranking factors is how a website loads, how quickly. So if you've got a website that is on a builder that has all these Swiss Army knife things coming out of it, and you only need one, you're spending a lot of time loading that page when you don't need to be doing all that. Whereas a hand-built website that's customized, you only essentially have the pages and components loading at that time that need to be done, and that really helps with your SEO and your ranking overall.
Right. Yeah, and it's okay. So we talk about the ranking and how you're moving up in the pages, and I understand what you're saying is that when people Google, that your page shows up with certain searches and stuff like that, and the higher they search. It was always my understanding that that was kind of a paid thing, that you paid Google to boost your ranking. Is that?
No, I think this is a common misconception.
Okay.
I think nowadays when you look at it, you'll see the little sign that says sponsored. So now it's easily identifiable that the top four, usually the top four results on any results page are sponsored or paid ads. And then you'll have your, what they call the 3-pack, which is your, the Google map, which will show 3 businesses. Yeah. And then after that, you've got 10 organic results. So when you're thinking about search engine optimization, is that you're thinking about where would I fill it in those 10 results organically on the page. Right. And if I'm not on the first page, am I on the second? Am I on the third? Am I on the fifth? Right. A lot of research shows that almost close to like 90 to 95% of individuals will not go past page 1. So if you're on page 2 or 5 or 10, you're still in cyberspace oblivion, right?
Right.
Like you're just, there's no point in even having that website because they're not getting that traffic. Right. But what you do see as a major boost to your business is when you are able to get up onto page 1 organically for a lot of your core keywords, the keywords that people are wanting to search for your product or service, is that when you do get up onto those first 1, 2, 3, or 4 positions, you can increase your overall search traffic to your website by anywhere from, 20, 40, 60%. Like we have a lot of our clients where we'll look now and their organic traffic out of all of their traffic makes up anywhere from 2/3 to almost 3/4 of all of their traffic. And then their paid traffic is just essentially a complement to it where they're saying, hey, for the keywords that I don't rank well for now, I want to essentially quote unquote rent that space and then I'll buy some those paid ads to make sure that I have positioning there with my competitors so I can be very, obviously visible. So yeah, there's a strategy to everything, but each business is different, right? Yeah. So that's why, going back, like the consultations are free. It's for us to get to know the business, to say, hey, this is who your perfect customer is. These are some things that we suggest that we can, that are changed. And this is the impact that we expect. And then obviously as time goes on, when we do bring a new customer on or a new client on board, it's essentially, from day one saying, hey, this is what you got last month. This is what you spent your money on. This is all of your traffic. So this is showing how many people have come to you, who have engaged with you, what kind of actions they take, what keywords they were typing in, all that information, because that's stuff you pay for, right? Yeah,
and that it's interesting because, going back to my days and working in media, there wasn't a lot of ways to track the traction of advertising. We know it works, but we don't always know how it works. Yeah. So it's interesting that this method, like with digital marketing, they can now, you can actually, here's the proof on it. Yeah.
And with I think a lot of people can understand every time they go onto a website, a little box that pops up, accept all cookies, etc. So with Google, they're going away from, obviously they want those cookies they want to be getting, like, that's obviously that's out the door, right? So that's something that's going to be a thing of the past. Really what they're looking for is first party data. So they're obviously saying, hey, if you got these individuals engaging with your website, you can essentially create like a marketing list where you're saying, hey, this is somebody who's engaged with and says, I'm interested in your product. I'd love to hear if you have any specials coming on during the year, when you have your big deals on, and signing up to a newsletter. And I think it's different ways that we engage now with our customers. And it's evolved. Obviously we haven't even talked about social media. We understand how massive that market is. Yeah. And I think, with TikTok essentially potentially going away in the US, what kind of impact is that going to have to businesses that are advertising on that platform in Canada? It's that kind of trickle down, but like I said, that's why I love doing what I do, because every single day it's a new, something new. Yeah.
And it's great that you brought it up, because you had actually said, hey, I'm coming up the long weekend. Can we talk about this? Because we definitely didn't get too deep in it. But your company that you work for, if people do want to find out more, if they have a business that they think can benefit from your guys, what's your company name again?
iNet Media. So INET and then media, MEDIA. So our website is inet-media.ca.
Okay. So no, I think it'd be great if a few people investigate.
www.inet-media.ca. Just
HTTP.
It'll still
two
get
dots
there.
Stacked on top of each other, a couple of lazy lines.
You'll still get there. Yeah. But yeah, so and that's the thing. We work with companies, like I said, all over the place, like all over North America and into Europe. So, we love to.
It's amazing how, just in your explanation, how drastically even what we consider the latest and greatest of online advertising and marketing has actually changed in itself too. Like we talk about cookies going the way of what's on video.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Yeah. Nice.
All right, Darren, you know where we're going next is second time in a row you've been here as someone completely interesting, and the invitation's always open to you and any other my guests for that matter to come on anytime they want. But you have to recommend someone now. I don't even remember who you remembered last time, or recommended last time.
I do know who I recommended last time, and he still might be a tall order because I remember Keenan being one of your. I had suggested Brett Kissel,
That's right.
And I know he has as well. And so maybe that's a shout out to Brett if you have some time. But no, I would say I would like to have another local boy. Ian Cossey.
Yeah.
So brother of Brent, who's obviously been on the show before,
Yes.
another local legend. And I mean, he's got a great history, his experience, obviously, teaching and I know being in the community. I think he'd be a good guest for us.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, there was the name drop earlier there. Ian, where's my pants?
You can get the end of that story on that.
Absolutely one. Great choice. Yes. And another one of my best friends, close personal friends that has been a great storyteller and mentor to me myself as well. So once again, Darren Watson, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give us a like and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. You can find us by searching Poolin Radio, or now for someone completely interesting. You can also find us on social media. We're Facebook and Instagram, also with Poolin Radio. Once again, my guest, one of my best friends, the one, the only, Dirty Darren Watson.
Thanks for having me.